So if you've read The Hobbit, cool. Yeah, so if you have read The Hobbit, what you're going to find when you play this game is that there are lots and lots of references to the Hobbit book. You're going to find mention of all the main characters. Bilbo is still around, Frodo is living here, Sam is here. This is before the Fellowship of the Ring. Um, so this is very much in the Third Age. So you're going to hear references to the adventures that Bilbo took. You're going to meet Gandalf multiple times. You're going to hear a lot of references to things that were mentioned in The Hobbit, such as Bull Roarer took and the fight with the goblins and the hard winter when the wolves came. You're going to hear they're going to reference multiple times specifically the main quest of this game, which is to create. You're trying to get Bywater to become a village, and in order to do that, you have to complete some specific quests, objectives to grow the village from a tiny little nothing. And in that is referenced the charter to the king, and that goes back to Of Concerning Hobbits from The Lord of the Rings, where Tolkien wrote the backstory from the Legendarium of the Hobbits and how they originally came to the Shire and their original annex of land, which was given to them by the King of Old, and the responsibilities that they were given by the King of Old, which have, of course, fallen to the wayside in the thousands of years since then. Oh yeah, if you've read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, you're gonna find so much from those books that is in this game. Now, if you have never read any of the books and you've only seen the Peter Jackson movies, then you're gonna find a deep, rich, lovingly crafted game that lets you play out the life of a hobbit in the Shire exactly the way that you saw the Shire portrayed in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films. So when we're watching Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings film, because Weta Workshop, who is the company who made this, is also the same company who did all of the costumes, all of the VFX, everything on the Lord of the Rings films with Peter Jackson years ago. So if you've only ever seen the Peter Jackson films, in the Fellowship of the Ring, when the whole beginning part of that film is all about life in the Shire, you see the hobbits going about their daily life. You see farmers, you see gardeners, you see people fishing, you see them hosting parties, having big festivals, having get-togethers. All of that takes place in this game, and that's exactly what you're doing in this game. And if you've never read The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, the stories that you find when you are going through this game and talking to the NPCs, those stories are going to be a backdrop. They might not necessarily be things that you recognize. So for those of us who have read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, those stories are like Easter eggs because we've read the books and we go, oh yeah, that's that part in the book. Oh yeah, that's the contract with the king that he mentioned over here. If you've never read the books, those are going to be things like, oh, well, that's interesting. And you might wonder, are those things real or did they invent those things for the game? And let me tell you, those things are real. Those things are absolutely in the books. I think the only thing that's not in the game would be the drinking and the smoking. And the reason that the drinking and the smoking is not in the game is because obviously they were trying to build a cutesy, family-friendly game that can be played on any platform, including the Switch 1 and 2. And they want this to be something that is family-friendly and accessible to all people, so there's no smoking of pipeweed or drinking of beers, even though that was definitely something that the hobbits were very, very fond of. Oh yeah, hang on, and yeah, that is very so. There's the walk. Yeah, the walk is funny, but also what is one of the things hobbits love to do apart from walking around the Shire? Skipping. I love the fact that you could skip around the Shire. Um, and then there's also a photo mode, which is awesome because you can run around and take awesome photos of life in the Shire. There's a day-night cycle. There's all this stuff, but yes, there's very much. For those of you who are lore fiends like I am, who love the books, there is a lot of book lore in this game, like a lot. Which is why I keep coming back to the people who are criticizing the game um, for not being book accurate. They don't know what to talk about. Mostly the people who are ranting about that are ranting because we have darker colored hobbits. There's some massive racism out there with some people who don't want there to be dark-skinned hobbits of any kind. They only want there to be white hobbits. So that's the only people you're going to see out there is talking about how this game has nothing to do with the books. They don't know what they're talking about. Believe me, this game has everything to do with the books. But like I said, if you haven't read the books, it doesn't really matter that much because you're still going to get that Peter Jackson vibe from it like you would get from the movies. And then all of these additional lore things like bringing a dish to Gandalf, like, you know, so the whole storyline, for example, which I think we did right before this segment of the video. I'm clipping this out for YouTube, by the way. The quest line that we were working on before this was talking to Willow about the fact that 100 years ago, the old Took, who is very famous from the books, the old Took was friends with Gandalf. And apparently the old Took had a meal that he loved to prepare for Gandalf. And so we were hunting down the recipe for that. And so we went to talk to Willow, and she told us the story of how her grandfather, the old Took, was friends with Gandalf. And we get this backstory there about that. And then we get the recipe, and then we can make the Bywater dish, which actually we already had from a different quest line. And then we have essentially gotten everything ready to do this quest, this festival. Again, this goes back to people. There have been critiques from people who are saying you can't host parties in the game, and there's no festivals, and hobbits always have festivals and always have parties. I've also proven that wrong. Like, we've had 40 or 30 or 40 at least at this point parties that we've hosted at various locations throughout the Shire, and we're about to host a big festival for everybody. And hopefully we're going to convince the assessor to let us become an official village, and Gandalf is supposed to show up to that party. So there's a lot of tie into the books. It's not super deep or super complex. Like, again, this is meant to be a game that is available to all ages, so it's told from a very simplistic nature. And you have characters like Daisy, who's obviously like a 5-year-old, and she talks like a 5-year-old. And I know some people have critiqued the game and said, oh, I don't, it's not complex enough. Well, it's not meant to be a Lord of the Rings, adaptation. This is very much Tales of the Shire. This is about the Shire lifestyle, not living the life of Middle Earth. Someone said the other day, well, I want to explore beyond the Shire. And I was like, well, this is Tales of the Shire, not Tales of Erebor. Like, technically, we already have a game called Lord of the Rings Online, which obviously is an older game at this point. But in that game, you can explore all of Middle Earth, and it's during the Fellowship of the Ring. All right. Oh, Gandalf's here. So speaking of book lore, we got some more stuff. Since we were asking specifically about are there stories in the game and so on and so forth, we're about to go meet Gandalf. But before we do that, I gotta grab an egg. Oh, it's winter. This is the first day of winter. I just noticed that. We have snow everywhere. Ah! So we got a season change while we're sitting here talking on the video. Very cool. Alright, let me deposit these things, and I need to grab some nuts for my chicken, so that I can get more eggs. Yes, there are seasons in the game. We start off, I believe you start off in summertime. Yeah, because we've done summer, autumn. Oh, we can harvest some rosemary. We gotta water my plants, though. Alright. My plants need watering. Oh, I don't have enough water. Let's get some more. This is really cool. I've been waiting for winter to happen. I kind of wasn't paying attention that we were at the end of autumn here. Hang on. We'll get back to the village square in a second so we can go meet up with Gandalf and show some more of the story stuff. All right. Go, 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 go. Let's go meet Gandalf. And so now, by the way, since we've decorated for the party festival, the entrance to the town looks completely different. Dude, I like the snow mist. That is a cool looking little visual effect. So we've got all the banners hung now. So we're getting ready to have a big old party. Who knows if we'll be able to host it yet or if we're going to have some more things that we need to do. Here we go. So, again, there's nothing to do in this game. There's no festivals. There's no story. You can't talk to the NPCs. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Hello, Gandalf. I hope you enjoyed your meal. It was just as I remembered it. Thank you, Renfail. Bless my beard. What a change you have made here, my friend. Well, I didn't do it alone. Oh, no. Orla Proudfoot and Ouroboros and Delphidium Brandybook, they have all traveled a long way. But it was you that showed them the path. I told you when we first met that we'd have some stories to share. Now, you must go and enjoy the festival. Thank you, Gandalf. I'll see you soon. And that, in the last 10 minutes or so, encapsulates Tales of the Shire. A cutesy, cozy, farming, gardening, cooking game where you can also host parties, host lunches and dinners, technically breakfast and second breakfasts, and also interact with NPCs, have quests, talk to them, and get lots of lore from The Hobbit. A little bit of lore from Lord of the Rings. Most of it's pulled from The Hobbit. But yeah, tons of lore and familiar characters and faces showing up, like Gandalf. This will be shipped out to YouTube, so if you're watching this after the fact, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Daily streams at 4:30 a.m. Central on YouTube and Twitch. Right now we're about 5 o'clock in the morning right now, I think, 5:15 or something, so we're about 45 minutes into the stream. And you too could show up and ask questions and get them answered live. And then they get clipped out and put on YouTube and turned into shorts for TikTok and Instagram and all the socials. I'm gonna title this. What was the original question? Something about, is there story? I gotta go scroll up now. Are there a lot of stories and lore in the Shire? Stories and lore in the Shire. I'll figure out a title for that later on.